Almost everyone who came to know Edward Hopper agreed on one thing, that he was a very reserved man. His wife Jo, who was far more sociable than he was, wrote in her diary that Edward rarely bothered to speak. One of his friends once remarked that Hopper often seemed on the verge of saying something, but never did. To look at an image like Nighthawks, painted by Hopper in 1942, is to confront an even deeper form of silence. There are very few works in the history of art capable of imposing such a powerful silence on the viewer as this one. Through a large window, we see the interior of a restaurant where 3 customers have gathered. We as viewers remain outside on the cold street, drawn in by the light of the place, yet separated from it by a wall of glass that prevents us from entering. If you look closely, there is not even a visible door to go in or out. The restaurant is an isolated place. We cannot hear what is happening behind the glass, and for that very reason the space feels, strangely enough, even more welcoming. A line of empty stools suggests that it is late, perhaps just after midnight, late enough for the streets to be deserted and for the lights in nearby apartments to be turned off. At the counter, a man and a woman are seated. They are the quintessential Hopper couple. They do not speak, absorbed in their own thoughts, yet they remain connected by an intimacy that we, as viewers, can only sense. At this stage in his career, Hopper already knew how to handle narrative clues with great skill, small hints of a story that suggest deep emotions without ever telling us exactly what they are. If we look even closer, we see that the man holds an unlit cigarette in his hand, while the woman gazes at the matchbox that could light it. The silence between them suggests an inner tension rather than calm, and her gesture hints at a choice that goes beyond striking a flame. Their hands almost touch, but never quite meet. The only movement in the scene comes from the restaurant employee, who appears bent over, tending to something we cannot see. He seems on the verge of saying something to the couple, yet neither of them looks up. This trio of figures is counterbalanced by a fourth presence, a solitary man with his back to us, seated on the left. His presence is crucial as he stands as the anonymous element in the painting. He can be read as the archetypal figure found in every city, the stranger on the corner. The man who walks the streets at night and ends up inside the restaurant because it is a clean, warm place where he can read the newspaper tucked under his left arm. For me, the enigmatic power of the painting lies in these open narratives whose ending will never be revealed. The work expresses what the art historian Walter Wells described as the impossibility of resolution. When we step back to observe the painting as a whole, it is worth noting the pristine quality of the scene, how immaculate the restaurant is, and how spotless the street appears. There is no trash and no trace of urban decay. The perspective lines that dominate the painting add a strong structural element that reinforces this sense of meticulous order. The elongated facade of the restaurant stretches across 2/3 of the canvas and follows a perspective whose vanishing point lies far to the left. This dominant structural order opens up the right side of the painting, drawing the viewer's gaze toward this empty space. We can also observe how the heads of the 3 customers are positioned exactly halfway between the top and bottom of the image. Another key element in the scene is light. One only has to look at the shape of the illuminated areas. The interior of the restaurant, bathed in an intense yellow, creates a geometric space. Its shape ends in a sharp point that abruptly projects toward the left. It is a precise, cutting light that gives the painting a modern feel. In contrast, the light that slides across the street floor is much softer and more curved. These 2 large areas of light organize the entire composition. They envelop the interior scene in such a way that, even in silhouette, we can clearly perceive the strong rectangular form that dominates the center of the image. In many ways, Hopper can be understood as a painter of light. In much of his work, he uses natural light, usually streaming forcefully through a window or a doorway, illuminating faces and casting shadows on the walls. In Nighthawks, however, the light is artificial. It is fluorescent light, a technology that was relatively new in the 1940s. The way Hopper represents this artificial glow is extraordinary. We sense the glass that separates us from the figures through the greenish bands that extend and overlap across the street floor. The paint is applied in layers, managing to describe with great precision that dimness pierced by light as it spills outward. Now, all of these aspects of the painting were planned by Hopper with great care in advance. His paintings always emerged slowly. In a recorded interview from 1961, he described a long process of mental gestation and the emergence of emotions. He chose his subjects carefully and, as preparation for painting, produced numerous small sketches, some of the composition as a whole, and others focused on interior details. "This is how it is created, with time," he said. Hopper's career as an artist was slow and not very promising at first. In his 20s and 30s, his works were shown in small group exhibitions in his hometown of New York, occasionally selling individual pieces, but he always depended on his regular work as an illustrator to pay his bills. He himself said that illustration was not what truly motivated him, yet he was forced to do it in order to survive. Little by little, he began to gain recognition. In 1923, the Brooklyn Museum acquired one of his watercolors titled The Mansard Roof and included it in its permanent collection, paying $100 for it. A year later, at the age of 42, Hopper held his first solo exhibition and sold every watercolor on display. It was only years later that he made the decision to become an artist full-time, leaving his work as an illustrator and devoting himself entirely to painting. Almost 20 years later, Hopper produced Nighthawks, perhaps his most mature image and certainly his most iconic. He himself gave the painting this title, as it offers us a world permeated by silence and solitude, a fragment of other people's lives in which we might recognize ourselves. It is also interesting to note that the painting was begun almost at the exact moment of the surprise military attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7th, 1941, an event that effectively brought the United States into the Second World War. From their correspondence, we know that Hopper and his wife were very aware of the increasingly tense situation unfolding in Europe throughout 1940. Edward, however, seemed to take refuge in painting as a form of escape. Even after the attack on Pearl Harbor, Joe remarked in a letter that he struggled to take an interest in the very real possibility that the country might be bombed. At that moment, he was completely absorbed in a new canvas and unwilling to be distracted. It was in January of the following month that Joe informed Marion, Edward's sister, about his newly completed work. The letter said the following: "Ed has just finished a very fine painting, a night food counter with 3 figures. Nighthawks would be a good name for it. E posed for the 2 men in the mirror and I for the girl. He worked on it for almost a month and a half, interested the whole time, too busy to get excited about public scandals, so we keep out of the fray." We will never know whether Nighthawks was a direct response to the growing threat of war. It may be more accurate to understand it as a form of withdrawal. The painting's contained melancholy feels like an exploration of the power of silence in the face of the noise and agitation of the outside world. This idea connects with something Hopper once said about his own art, that if an image could be explained in words, there would be no need to paint it. Thank you for watching this video until the end. I would love to read your thoughts about this painting in the comments. And as always, if you would like to collect it for your own home, you can purchase it directly through the link in the description of this video. By buying a reproduction, you will receive a piece that is as faithful as possible to the original work, and you will also be supporting me tremendously in continuing to create more videos. Thank you for the support, and I will see you in the next video.